Well, hello all. Welcome back to the Barton webinar with Dr. Scott Saunders. I'm your host, Cheryl, and then we also have the man himself, Joe Barton, on today.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome. Uh, Today's topic is going to be sugar substitutes. Are they helpful or are they harmful? So if you start thinking about your questions, please put them in the in the Q&A. I will get to them. Please don't put them in the chat. But if you want to chat about which sweeteners you like to use. I prefer stevia, but I don't know if I'm going to find out that's the bad one. I don't know, maybe. Um, and then, yeah, let's get started. And usually we have a disclaimer. This is the one I thought about today. Dr. Saunders is not your doctor, but he is for the next hour. So listen to what he says. If you have concerns, do some research and then talk to your own doctor about what we discussed today. And we hope you find this webinar informational and useful, educational, and good for you, good to share with others. And so let's get started
Oh,
on.
real quick, I want to just clarify, so I think you're kind of joking that he's everyone's doctor here for an hour. Well, no, that's not true. But like, so and the reason for the disclaimer is because every person has their own stuff going on, and Dr. Saunders, if he were your doctor, he would get to know you and know all sorts of things about your history and medical things and life and that. And so yeah, this is generic advice that is helpful for most people in most situations. But again, just be wise and like I like to say, don't sue us for anything because we're just here trying to help. And really, the reason for this webinar started 6 years ago. Over 6 years ago, it was August of 2019, and Dr. Saunders and I have worked together for 17 years, and we had talked about doing something like this in the past, but then finally we did it in August of 19, and it was really because we wanted to offer something. Oh, I'm going to change my microphone real quick. Thank you
Yes,
for
they're
letting me
saying
know.
you're hard to hear, Joe.
Okay, I'm hard of hearing and hard to hear. Okay, microphone. How about this? Is this better?
Much better.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. All right, so yeah, the reason we started the webinar was really because of who we are as people and a company is like our core value number 2 says help people more. So we really wanted to help our people more, and by offering the webinar, we can our top selling product was the diabetes solution kit. And so what if on our webinar we could help just explain and help answer questions and Dr. Saunders to talk about what that means, how to actually implement that in the life, answer a lot of frequently asked questions. And so over the years, we've been doing this for, 6 years now. 6 times 52 is 312, and it's I think Dr. Saunders has only missed 2 weeks in there, two, maybe three.
Maybe three.
Yeah.
One time I was traveling in London and I still did it from London.
Yeah. Yeah. And the time was probably at night, or I don't know, eight at night or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, so and a little later today, we're gonna have sort of a special sort of a way for you guys to get involved, especially with someone that isn't with us right now, isn't hosting the webinar. Actually, I'm just going to do it right now that I open that can of worms. So you all know, if you've been here for more than the last few weeks, you've experienced Leslie, and Leslie's been our host for since the beginning. And so she recently just said after 300 episodes, she's just got a little burnt out, and also has had a little bit of health issues and just needed something new in her life. And so she asked to take a break. And then today she let me know that she thinks that she's just gonna call it for good on the webinar. So Leslie won't be hosting anymore, but we all love Leslie. She's been amazing and does a great job. And so I want to ask you guys if you can share in the chat anytime in the next 45 minutes, just anything you want to say to Leslie. We're going to put together a digital card to send to her. So all of your comments, all of your thanks and appreciation to Leslie. I know she would really love to see that and hear from you guys. She's developed a lot of good relationships with many people here. And so, and I'll probably share that again because some people join later on and things like that. But yeah, just put something in the chat and we'll include and make sure to send that to Leslie and let her know how much we love her and appreciate her. So, but yeah, back to you guys.
Thanks, Joe. We will have probably someone else joining us with the webinar in the near future, so you can expect to see more faces here as well. And so let's talk about sugar substitutes. So we've been told for a long time that sugar is the bad guy, but now are we finding out that sweeteners are the bad guy as well? We're going to talk about that. So do they help your metabolic state? Do they help your insulin or not? So Dr. Saunders, why don't you just jump off the deep end and start telling us about sweeteners, good or bad?
Okay, this is a really important topic because it separates the sheep from the goats, so to speak. Because when you go to a doctor and you start, or the doctor starts saying that you might have diabetes, what is the doctor looking at? Just one thing, your glucose. That's sugar, right? So all they're looking at is your glucose level. So if your glucose level is good, you're good, right? And that's all that matters. But if you look at the underlying problem, what's really going on is something called insulin resistance. So insulin is a hormone that allows glucose, sugar, into cells. And if you don't have insulin, you cannot get glucose into those cells. It's just not going to happen. So somebody who doesn't make insulin is called type 1 diabetes. So the sugar cannot get into the cells. The glucose will stay in the blood. So it goes up and up and up and up in the blood, really high. And so the doctor looks at the glucose in the blood and says, oh, you have diabetes because your glucose is high, without looking at the underlying problem of wait a minute, it's because there's no insulin to bring the glucose into the cells. The cells are starving to death because they don't have any energy. So there's a ton of energy out there, but they can't use it. They can't bring it into the cell and use it because it requires insulin. So the problem is never glucose as the primary problem. That's a secondary problem. That's a symptom, not the problem. So when you go to a doctor and they say you have diabetes because your glucose is high, you might look at, well, do I have type 1 diabetes where it's because my pancreas is not making insulin? Or do I have type 2 diabetes where I have insulin resistance? So that's why these are so important, because those are opposite illnesses. The actual underlying problem is exactly the opposite. You have too much insulin in type 2 diabetes and not enough insulin in type 1 diabetes. So that's an important distinction on when we're looking at this, the artificial sweeteners. Because if you go to a doctor and you're a diabetic and the doctor says, well, don't eat sugar, but you can have all the artificial sweeteners you want because they're not sugar. So you start taking in artificial sweeteners. Well, if you have type 1 diabetes, it's not going to be a big deal. You still have to get insulin, but there's still problems with that we'll talk about in a minute. But if you have type 2 diabetes and you're taking in artificial sweeteners, the taste of sweet prepares your pancreas to make more insulin. And you're already too much insulin and you're already insulin resistant. It's going to make you more insulin resistant. And the higher your insulin level is, the more fat you put on. So it's going to make you more fat, give you more insulin resistance. And so your actual underlying problem is getting worse because of this artificial sweetener. So years ago, many years ago, in the 1970s, Pepsi Cola did a study on the diet Pepsi versus regular Pepsi. And so they took people that drinking diet Pepsi, and people drinking regular Pepsi. And for some strange reason that they couldn't figure out, the people drinking Diet Pepsi gained more weight than the people drinking regular Pepsi. And they're like scratching their heads going, what the heck? There's no calories. This is 0 calories. How in the heck are they gaining more weight than the people who are drinking regular Pepsi? I mean, they're both sweet, they're both drinks, but the regular Pepsi clearly has sugar calories in it, and the Diet Pepsi does not. So come to find out over time that the taste of sweet prepares the pancreas to make more insulin every time you eat. And insulin tells your body to put on fat. That's what insulin does. If you don't have insulin, that's another thing. If you have no insulin, you cannot put on fat, period. I had a patient who was a type 1 diabetic. Her pancreas made no insulin at all, so she had to get injections. And then somebody told her when she was in high school, somebody told her, look, you're so lucky because because you can eat anything you want. And if you don't inject insulin, you won't put on weight. So you can stay thin all the time and eat whatever you want. And you don't ever have to diet. And she's like, wow, cool. Well, of course, she ended up in the hospital several times in diabetic ketoacidosis in the intensive care unit, almost dying because she wasn't injecting her insulin and she was eating everything she wanted. So not a good plan. But the point is just that if you don't have insulin, you cannot put on weight, period. So when you have high insulin, guess what? You put on a ton of weight. So what do you think that the artificial sweetener is doing in the Diet Pepsi compared to the actual sugar in the Pepsi? Well, the artificial sweetener is 300 times sweeter than sugar. So what that means is it binds to the sweet receptors 300 times stronger. And that means that it's preparing the pancreas to make more insulin 300 times more than the regular sugar. What does that mean? That means you're going to put on more weight, put on more fat. You're going to get more insulin resistant than if you ate pure sugar. So that's why people are getting all the Mexican sodas these days, because they're actually made out of sugar. They don't have artificial sweeteners. They don't have high fructose corn syrup in them, and you don't gain weight as much with the regular sugar than you do with the artificial sweeteners. So that begs the question: what about stevia? You know, stevia, like it's totally natural. It's a leaf extract. You can even eat the leaves themselves and they're sweet. You can put it in stuff. And that's an herb, right? And it's perfectly good and fine. Well, yeah, it's fine for most people. But if you have insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, it may not be fine for you. So that's kind of the thing with anything. You know, if you had celiac disease, then you would have to eat gluten-free. Just because that's you. Your next door neighbor doesn't have to eat gluten-free because you have celiac disease, right? You have to eat gluten-free. So if you have type 2 diabetes, you have to avoid the taste of sweet. Yes, you have to avoid the taste of sweet. So, and that's the hardest thing for people to get past their brains that, oh, I have this issue, therefore I can't do that thing. You know, everybody has something, you know, that they have to give up. For example, you know, my wife had to give up gluten. She had to give up all the things she loved. She can't have any bread. She loves bread, and she had to give it up. Sourdough bread. She used to bake her own bread. Like every day she would bake bread, and we would have fresh bread all the time. And now she doesn't bake bread anymore because she's gluten intolerant. So that's the same kind of thing with diabetes. You have to avoid the taste of sweet because that's what brings on the insulin resistance. And if you raise your insulin up, then you're going to have the same problems of type 2 diabetes, weight gain, lack of energy, brain fog, heart problems, kidney problems. All of this comes on not because of sugar specifically, but because of sweet. It's because it's insulin. The bottom line is insulin, not sugar. It's insulin. So that's why. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And but everything has sugar these days. You go to Starbucks. Those are loaded with sugars. We know that. It's in your yogurt. It's in everything. So what would you recommend to someone to get off the taste of sweet or retrain their taste buds?
That's hard. I dealt with that personally. I was the kid in when I was a little kid, 5 years old. I'm scraping candy up off the sidewalk that's melted in, from the sun, and I'm scraping it up and eating it because I just sweet, anything sweet. And my mom would not allow us to have no ice cream. We didn't have desserts after dinner. We didn't, we didn't have any of that stuff. So I like sweet. So how do you retrain that? That's a great question. And the way is to avoid the sweet things. Just avoid anything sweet. And for me, it's getting well, like sourdough bread. That's not something instead of a loaf of bread. If you look at a loaf of bread like whole wheat bread, they put sugar in it, and they put a lot of sugar in it. Gravy. You can't go to a restaurant without getting a bunch of sugar on everything. You think you're getting vegetables with seasoning on it. What does the seasoning have? Sugar. The seasoning has sugar in it. And the meat, the seasoning for meat that we get where I am, it's called Santa Barbara. Um, it's a tri-tip seasoning, and it's got sugar in it. So here's the way you do it. You do everything in its natural state. You don't buy anything that's processed. You don't buy anything that somebody else makes, unless you know like what's in it. You could look at the ingredients and say, okay, there's no sugar in that. But you buy fruit and vegetables. Well, fruit you have to be careful of because you only get 20 grams, right? If you have type 2. Um, so you buy your vegetables, you buy everything fresh as much as you can, and something like bread. I'm not saying you have to make your own bread, but just look on the ingredient label and find out. I went to Trader Joe's and found one that didn't have any added sugar. It was actually really good. It was a whole grain bread without any added sugar. But you wouldn't eat bread either if you're type 2. I keep telling you things that you shouldn't eat. So avoiding processed foods is a good idea. Make your own gravy if you're going to do that. All that stuff.
My husband and I did Whole 30, which is basically a kind of elimination diet. This was years ago, and you can't have anything sweet or any of the sweeteners. And I was surprised at how well I felt just doing everything in their natural state. It's minimal. Well, seasoning is one thing, but you have to do the seasoning without sugar. But it did happen. It took probably a month to get to feel like good, but also that I didn't crave the sweet things anymore. Okay, here's the next question. Are there worse sweeteners than others? Do you rank, let's say, aspartame or aspartame? I'm not sure which way
Yeah,
you say it.
aspartame.
Worse than,
Yeah.
let's say, monk fruit or stevia?
Yes. Yeah, there's a difference, and there's a big difference. Man, there should be some kind of ranking. So back in the early 2000s, there was this a neotame that came out. It's related to aspartame, and it's like 100 times sweeter than aspartame. So you only need tiny amounts of it. Like stevia is one of those that you need very tiny amounts to make something sweet. The problem is it's like super toxic. So they couldn't really market it to people. So what they did is they marketed it to animals. So they give it to cattle while they're on the feedlot before slaughter, so that they gain a whole bunch of fat, because this super duper sweetener causes them to make a whole bunch more insulin, and that extra insulin causes them to put on a bunch of fat. So they gain a bunch of weight in the feedlot that they wouldn't have gained otherwise, and that makes them more valuable. The cattlemen make more money, and so they're willing to buy this neotame, which is super duper sweetener. So there is that ranking, and I don't remember what all the numbers are, but I know the aspartame is about 300 times sweeter than sugar, which means you need 1/300th to get the same amount of sweetness um, from sugar. And then fructose is a lot sweeter than glucose. So glucose is the sugar you burn for energy. Fructose is technically a sugar, but it doesn't burn in your body like a sugar. It actually is more used like a fat. So people get fatty liver disease the same with fructose, the same way they do with alcohol. Alcohol is also a carbohydrate that's can't be used the same way as sugar does. So alcohol, fructose, people say, oh, that's a low glycemic sweetener. Do you know why? Because it doesn't have glucose. Glucose is the glycemic in the high glycemic index, and fructose doesn't have any. But fructose damages the liver. It causes an excessive release of insulin, and it causes insulin resistance. So it's not good for you. And people think, oh, fructose is better. And in fact, it's advertised as a low glycemic sweetener. So the way to look at it is this, is how much you need. So something like agave nectar that's 90% fructose, you only need a little bit to sweeten, but it's going to release more insulin than corn syrup, which is like glucose. That's just pure glucose syrup, and it requires more. So yeah, and stevia is great for other things like stevia. Because of the way it works, it gets rid of the biofilms, the bad biofilms in your intestines. And so it's often used as a biofilm disruptor in people that have um, irritable bowel syndrome or other bowel problems. So there's a lot of other reasons. But yes, that's a great question. There are better and worse ones. And monk fruit and all of the monk fruit is one of them. They are sugar alcohols,
Mm-hmm.
and and they're okay, but they still cause the release of insulin.
All right, talking about damage in your liver, you often talk about the gut microbiome. Can sweeteners harm your gut?
Oh, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, there's recent research on that. Some of these artificial sweeteners, like people are using, oh, what's the gum that they're using that has, and they have toothpaste with it now.
Xylitol?
Yeah, yeah. Is it xylitol? Yeah,
Xylitol, yeah.
yeah. So xylitol is kind of like a sugar, but it can't be digested, and the bacteria don't digest. So the bacteria take it up like a sugar, but they can't use it, and they get toxic and they die. And so xylitol kills off your bacteria in your mouth, and they go, oh, that's great. Then you won't get cavities. Well, guess what? It goes down into your intestines, kills off your bacteria in your intestines too. So it's not like a perfect artificial sweetener. There's side effects and there's problems with it. And so yes, they do. These sugars, sugar alcohols and other sugars can affect the bacteria in your intestines and how they function. And that's important.
Are sweeteners connected to inflammation at all?
Yes, especially fructose
Mhm.
is a really high inflammatory, let's kind of like alcohol, causes inflammation in the liver, especially. And so people get fatty liver just from eating fructose, a sweetener. But glucose is a high octane fuel. So glucose is like, that's the quick energy, right? So if you had a race car and your race car runs on this really high octane fuel, and you're racing it around the track, you may get a couple thousand miles out of that engine, and you have to replace the whole engine because this high octane fuel is hot and there's a lot of power in it, so there's more pressure, more heat, and it's doing more damage, right? Whereas if you were to go to, like, say, a really powerful engine like a diesel, like a big diesel truck, right? And you can run one of those across the country and back. 20, you can get 1,000,000 miles out of a good diesel engine, and it's going to still be going. Why? Because the diesel fuel is a slow burning fuel. It's low octane. It's not a hot burning fuel. And so with the diesel engines, you have more power, you have a longer stroke, and you have more power. Whereas with the high octane fuel, it's like really fast. You get a super quick. Okay, so sugar is like the high octane fuel. That's the race car. And it's hot and it's making inflammation and it's making oxygen free radicals like crazy. And then the diesel fuel is like fat. So when you're burning fat, that's a low octane fuel. It doesn't make as much oxygen free radicals. It makes some, but not as much. And so you can go a long time on fat, whereas you can go much quicker on sugar. So, for example, Nike wanted to run a 2 hour marathon, under 2 hour marathon. Now think about that. 26 miles in less than 2 hours. That's 120 minutes. So you're doing a 4.5 minute mile for 26 miles. Like, who can do that? Well, they actually found somebody who could. Here's the problem. They couldn't store enough sugar to have that quick energy to do the whole thing. They had to eat in the middle of the race. Well, that slowed them down and they couldn't make it under 2 hours. So they had to do a combination. They had to train their body to burn fat and then carbo load before the race so that they could have both types of fuel. Well, if you're burning sugar, you have more oxygen-free radicals and more damage being done to your cells. Whereas if you're burning fat, you have less damage. So actually, it's a big deal. So yeah, burning fat, there's a lot of advantages to that.
There are so many good questions about sweeteners coming in, both in the chat and the Q&A. But one person says, Rianne asks, is it true that Splenda was originally created as an ant insecticide? Have you heard that?
Splenda. No, I didn't know.
Yeah, maybe not. We don't know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Randy says food companies keep coming up with new sweeteners that is almost overwhelming. I found a no sugar soda called Franny's that uses sucralose that I'm sure is as bad as the other sweeteners you're discussing today. Is sucralose bad?
No, actually, sucralose among like you said, is there a ranking?
Yeah.
Sucralose would be on the lower ranking as far as releasing more insulin into your body and problems that it would cause. Sucralose is not a bad choice compared to other sweeteners like fructose, for example.
And all right, people are asking about monk fruit and erythritol.
Okay. Erythritol, monk fruit, these are alcohols. They're sweeteners that are alcohol sugars. They are sugars, but they're alcohols, and so they aren't used in the body like glucose. So they have low glycemic index. But it's the same issue that if you have that taste of sweet and your pancreas is making this extra insulin, then you're going to become insulin resistant. Remember, the problem is not the sweetness. The problem is not the sugar. The problem is the insulin. And so you could have something that's not sweet at all, like rice, eating crackers. What the heck? The crackers aren't sweet, but that starch is broken down into glucose and then it raises the insulin. So the problem is not the sugar, the starch, the alcohol, the sweet taste specifically. It's the insulin. So anything you can do to not make insulin is what we're looking for in someone who has type 2. So if it tastes sweet, it's going to be an issue. So yes, you can say, what about this sweetener? What about that sweetener? I can tell you, yeah, they're sweet, and I don't know where they are on the scale, but they still will cause the release of insulin.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Sandy asks about Manuka honey.
Oh, Manuka honey, very interesting. This is honey from New Zealand, and it is the structure, the basis of it is half fructose and half glucose. Okay, so that's the honey part. That's the liquid part of it. But Manuka honey has these special characteristics because of what are they? Some bioflavonoids and some other chemicals from that the bees bring in from the plants where they get the honey. And so it's a very special honey. And we use it in the nursing home. Well, when I used to work in the nursing home, we would use it on wounds because it stops the growth of bacteria. And the honey, the fructose and the glucose, bring in the fibroblasts to repair and opens up blood vessels to bring in blood to repair. So it actually helps repair wounds. So you can take, like, if you have a cut or something, put Manuka honey over it, wrap it up, and just leave it for a week because it's going to stop any bacteria from growing and it's going to heal it. It's going to bring in the repair to heal it. So Manuka honey is wonderful, but when you eat it, it's still half fructose and half glucose, just like regular honey.
All right, what about D-mannose? You've mentioned D-mannose on here numerous times.
Okay, D-mannose is wonderful. Actually, you know what? It's not that sweet. I have never seen a test of D-mannose on insulin levels, but it is not used by the body, so we don't use it. Bacteria do use it in our intestines, and it is absorbed somewhat, and most of it comes out in the urine. And so people like to get frequent urinary tract infections often take mannose so that they can, because the bacteria will hold on to it. They'll grab onto it and go, ooh, mannose, I like that. And then they go back, it causes them, they can't stick to the walls anymore because they stick to the mannose, and then they get excreted in the urine. And so that prevents people from getting urinary tract infections. So, but as far as for diabetes, gosh, I don't know. It could be useful. I don't know. But remember, if it tastes sweet, it's still releasing insulin.
Yeah, we have questions about allulose now. What
Yeah.
about maple syrup?
Okay. Okay, so maple syrup is sucrose syrup. So that's half fructose and half glucose. But it's not like honey. Maple syrup is a solution. So it's in water. So it's like sugar water, but it's very concentrated. And if you've ever seen it made, it's kind of awesome. They take this sap from the maple tree, which is really thin and watery and clear, and then they just put it in a huge vat and they boil it and boil it and boil it and boil it and boil it, and all the steam is coming off, and all that steam is boiling all the water off until they concentrate it down to just the right amount where it's thick, but because if it gets too thick, it starts crystallizing in there, and you don't want that. Although some people do, but if it's too thin, then it's all watery. So you have just the right consistency for a maple syrup, but it's sucrose. It's just sugar water essentially. The other one was allulose, and allulose. So I was talking with Joe about this. This is we were talking about making a powder, right? A powder scoops that people could make their protein shakes with, and it would have everything in it, everything your brain and body could possibly need, so that you would have a good nutrition from it. And part of the problem is taste. So if you take all the sweeteners out, it doesn't taste good at all. And so what do you use? Do you put aspartame? Do you put stevia in it? So previously we made a fiber supplement, fiber greens, and we put stevia in it because it's a natural sweetener and everything. And it's actually very sweet, so you don't need very much of it and all that. So I was looking into options, and allulose came up as the best option. It has the least amount, and this is tested. The other things like mannose, I don't know about, and I don't know about the specifics of all of them. But allulose came up as, when it was tested, very low glycemic index, doesn't release insulin very much, has a low grade sweet taste, like a full sweet taste, not like, you know, if you've ever had like aspartame, it has kind of a thin, super sweet taste, but it doesn't have a rich, a complete flavor. Whereas allulose has good flavor, not too sweet, and doesn't release a lot of insulin, and it's non-caloric. So that's what the one I recommended to Joe for our powder was allulose. So I think, you know, of all the options, that's probably the best.
All right, mark that down. Allulose. That is what we can use. Better to get off sugar and the sweet of taste, but if you must, allulose. Let's get to some other questions here. Richard asks, is there anything new to treat shingles?
Okay, new.
Yeah, what do you mean
Okay,
by new, Richard?
okay. Well, let's just then talk about shingles.
Okay.
So, when I was a kid, I got chicken pox, and the way that happened was Tony had chicken pox. He lived about 4 doors down from me. I was in kindergarten at the time, and my mom said, "Ah, Scott, Tony's sick. Why don't you go down and see Tony and help him to feel better?" So I obediently marched down to Tony's house, and he had like dots all over him, and he was like feverish. He goes, "I don't feel good," and so I don't remember what we did. I was really young, but anyway, um, less than a week later, I started getting dots on, and I got fever and everything, and my mom did it on purpose. Anyway, so I got the chicken pox, and I still have one scar that I scratched because my mom told me don't scratch, but I did, and I cried. Anyway, so that chicken pox virus has been living in my body since then, since I was 5 years old. The virus is somewhere, I don't know where, it could be anywhere, in a nerve in my body. And so, if my immune system is suppressed, and if this virus is so inclined, it can come out in the nerve, and it follows the nerve, and then it creates a rash as it gets to the skin wherever that nerve is, and it damages the nerve endings, and it damages the nerve because it's in the nerves, right? That's where it comes out. So yeah, you see a rash, but it's a nervous system problem, not specifically the rash isn't the problem. So, and the rash is very specific to the nerve. So, for example, if I have it on, let's see, T4, then it comes across here and it stops right at the midline, and it will not go across. I will have zero bumps on this side, on the left side, and it will only be on the right side, all the way from the back to the front, or it might be sporadically, and or even just clustered in one area, but it will never cross the midline. Why? Because the nerve doesn't cross the midline, and that's how you know it's shingles. If you have a rash that crosses the midline, it's not shingles, it's not herpes, it can't be, because those live in the nerves and they can only come out in the nerves. So then what happens? Well, now you have nerve damage, and that nerve damage can be super painful. And some people are in so much pain, they're like, their shirt can't touch their skin, and they're like, oh, this is horrible. And it's a really, really terrible thing to have, this neuropathy. And so how do you heal the nerves? So number one, you want to prevent it from happening. You want to prevent the nervous system from having the damage. And so one of the things that you do is make sure you have enough vitamin D. Vitamin D doesn't block everything, but it prevents it from being bad. Like it allows the immune system, the cellular immunity, to get rid of viruses very quickly, to clean them up very quickly. Because if you have to wait till the antibodies come out, which could be a week later, that virus is like spread and done so much more damage. And so what the vitamin D does is helps the early responders of your immune system. So getting adequate vitamin D and keeping it up is a good idea. Number two, don't be deficient in B vitamins, because those B vitamins are required for the nerves to function properly, especially B6, B9, B12. So if someone comes into my office and I suspect they have shingles, or I see that they have shingles, I always give them a shot of vitamin B12 right away. Just get a shot. Why? Because it decreases nerve inflammation. So just to stop that inflammatory process of the nerves. High dose vitamin C, if you ever get shingles, taking a lot of vitamin C will shut down that inflammation, and that'll be helpful. So now what happens? Well, let's look at now you had shingles, it went away, and now you have post-herpetic neuralgia. Neuralgia means nerve pain. So now those nerves are constantly irritated, and like your shirt can't touch your skin, or else it'll really hurt a lot. And if someone comes by and taps you, hey, how you doing? Ah, that's really painful, because the like on edge all the time, and so nothing can touch it. So with the neuralgia, you want to heal the nerves, so nerve healing things. We have a supplement called Nervala, which is really good for healing nerves. It's alpha lipoic acid and benfotiamine. Benfotiamine is a fat-soluble vitamin B1, so it's also a B vitamin. And alpha lipoic acid lowers the inflammation, especially in nerves, because it works, and it's fat-soluble and water-soluble, so it has that advantage. So, anything new? I think, like, if you were to go to a regular doctor and ask them, what do I do for shingles? I'd be like, nothing you can do. Get the shot. It's like, so yeah, all of that's new.
And we just posted it in the chat. We a link to Nervala you can purchase on our website. Use code webinar 2025 for 25% off. All right. Richard asks, please explain Dawn syndrome. Also, is it normal for blood sugar to rise when hungry just before a meal?
Okay. Good question. So there are so many things that affect your blood sugar. It's not just, oh, I ate something, my blood sugar goes up. Well, yeah, that could happen. And that's part of it. But there's a lot of things. And so now we're doing, like, people are doing injection of peptides. Who ever heard of a GLP-1 peptide? What the heck is that? Well, that affects your blood sugar, right? The diabetics are using it. And glucagon, and GLP-1, by the way, stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. And there's a 2, and there's a 3. Anyway, so there's all these things that enter into what your blood sugar is, but ultimately all of that, the purpose of it is to keep your blood sugar in this range, 70 to 90. And so when it goes up, then you release insulin to bring it down and bring it back into that range. So it's gotta stay there all the time. And when it goes too low, then you release glucagon, and your liver makes a bunch of sugar, and it comes back up to stay right in that range. And there's a whole bunch of factors that enter in to keep that thermostat going exactly in that place. So what's the dawn effect? Well, when you wake up in the morning, every morning, your adrenal glands put out a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol makes you insulin resistant, number one. And number two, it tells your liver to start making some glucose. Hey, we're waking up. We need glucose. It's perfectly logical and natural, right? So you wake up, you go, oh, so that gets your brain working. Well, why are you resistant to insulin from the cortisol? Because the cortisol cares about your brain, your kidneys, and your heart, all of the things that have to get you going when your stomach is empty. Why is your stomach empty? Well, you're fasting, right? You're overnight, your stomach's empty. You haven't eaten since yesterday, and your stomach's empty, so you're not absorbing any calories, and you don't have any. So with an empty stomach, the adrenal glands have to wake you up and get your blood sugar up so that your brain can function, right? That's primary. So the muscles, they're secondary. that can wait. In fact, the muscles have a storage called glycogen that allows them to use their own internal source. They don't have to get it from your blood, but your brain does have to get it from your blood. So that's where the insulin resistance comes in. So it's a beautifully perfect system. And if you didn't believe in God, if you knew about this, you would have to believe in God because there'd be no other way. So, the dawn effect is that your blood sugar is going to go up in the morning so that your brain can function. It's perfectly okay. Now, if it goes up over 120, that's clearly because you have insulin resistance. You have type 2 diabetes. So people often say, "Oh, the dawn effect, that doesn't mean anything." No, it means you're insulin resistant. It can go up to 100, 110. That's perfectly normal. But if it's going up, 120 or more, then that's a diabetes thing. Even if you have an empty stomach and you haven't eaten anything, that's an indication of insulin resistance. What was the second part of the question?
Is it normal for blood sugar to rise when hungry just
Oh,
before a meal?
when you're hungry for a meal. Okay, so here you have another effect, the same thing going on. Before a meal, when you're hungry, you're preparing, and so your blood sugar starts getting lower, and you're getting hungry, right? So as your blood sugars drops down, your pancreas says, "Oh, I need to put out glucagon." So the pancreas puts out glucagon to tell the liver, "Hey, make some sugar." So your blood sugar goes up. Now, if you don't have type 2, you wouldn't even notice that. If you didn't have a continuous glucose monitor, you might not even notice that. But because there's a lot of people with type 2 are having continuous glucose monitors, they can see, "Oh, I haven't even eaten anything and my blood sugar went up. What the heck?" It's glucagon. It's perfectly fine. That's normal. But it is also an indicator that you have insulin resistance.
All right. Suzanne Gray says, "Why are my feet so sore? They truly hurt. At first, about 3 months ago, it was 1 foot only. Now it's in both feet. Comes and goes daily. At times, it feels as if something is physically twisting my toes. I get stabbing pains, and it does feel the same as when it started."
Okay, so that stabbing pains, feeling like it's twisted, that could be spasms, and that could be caused from nerve issues. So it started in one and now it's in both. This sounds like a progressive neuropathy. And the fact that it's in both feet tells you it's not a one-side thing. In other words, it's not like a pinched nerve in your lumbar spine or something like that. That's not the problem. It's a systemic problem, and the fact that it's progressive indicates that it's a systemic problem, which means it's probably metabolic. And if you have diabetes, this could be diabetic neuropathy. That would be one reason for that. If you don't have diabetes, then you have to look for other sources of neuropathy. Do you have heavy metal toxicities or other toxicities? Do you have deficiencies, especially of B vitamins, or is there a mitochondrial problem? I do a test called a NutriEval from Genova Diagnostics, and it tests for vitamins and minerals and amino acids and fatty acids, and it looks for heavy metals and minerals, and so it gives kind of an overview of the metabolism of how things are functioning. So if you have type 2 or even type 1 for that matter, then you may already know, oh, this is diabetic neuropathy. So there's two things you have to do. Number one, control your blood glucose, get the insulin level down. And that's clearly number one. Number two, take Nervala and get those nerves repaired. We've had plenty of people on this program who have written back and told us, "Yeah, I started on the Nervala and my neuropathy went away. I can feel my feet again. The pain went away." We have all of those kinds that have told us that. So we know it works. So that's something you can try.
Very good. And we posted that link in the chat if you're interested. I've taken Narvala and found it very helpful for also neuropathy related issues. All right. I was going to ask this question. What is the best treatment for parasites? fluke, tapeworms, etc. We don't eat raw fish. And which is safer, wild-caught salmon from Alaska or the Atlantic? And is it safe to eat smoked salmon flavored cream cheese and wild-caught canned salmon in salads?
Okay. Okay. So let's just start with the difference between a wild-caught salmon and a farmed salmon. They're roughly equivalent, but there is clearly about 4 times more omega-6 oils in farmed salmon than there is in the wild-caught salmon. And part of that reason is that in the farmed salmon, they make large farms. They put huge nets out, and so the fish can swim all over the place. And it's open water, so it's going through the nets and everything. So they're not like in a fish bowl. It's out in the open water. They just have a huge net that the fish swim in, but they have to feed them. So they have a lot of fish in a small area, and they have to feed them. So, so they drop in pellets of food, and often those pellets contain things like soy and corn, and soy has like 30 times more omega-6 than omega-3, and corn has like 60 times more omega-6 than omega-3. So the ratios, even though it's open water and they're eating the other stuff too, the wild-caught salmon clearly has a better fat profile than other salmon. Okay, so now what about the mercury thing? I had a guy who I got a call from the lab, and the lab called me and said, "We have a panic value." And I'm like, okay, what's the panic? And they said, mercury level. I said, what's the mercury level? They said, it's 50 times. It's more than we can measure. It's 50 times the upper limit of normal plus. And I said, oh my gosh, who is it? And so they gave me the name, and they said, is he dead? And I'm like, no, he's not dead. Oh, let me call him. So I called him, and it was really funny because as soon as I hung up with them, I called him, and I said, so what you doing? He said, fishing. I said, where are you? Oh, out in the Santa Barbara Channel. I said, what do you fish for? He said, swordfish. And I'm like, oh, that's why. Swordfish is the highest mercury laden fish that you can get. And every twice a year, he goes out sword fishing. And by the time they get in to port, he's got that whole fish filleted and on ice. And then he takes it home and has it bubble or shrink wrapped, so it's like no air in it, and it's all in the freezer. So whenever he wants swordfish, he goes in the freezer, pops one of those out, throws it in the pan or on the barbecue, and he's got swordfish, right? So the problem with that is apparently he had swordfish like the day before or whatever. There is a lot of mercury, and the fact that he was super high probably was just that it was in his blood because he had it recently. And that's different from people who have it like inside their tissues, where it's not in the blood, or it's very low levels in the blood, and you wouldn't know that it's in the tissues everywhere. So yes, fish does have mercury, and the medium to low wild caught salmon is medium to low range mercury. It's pretty good. I wouldn't eat it every day, but if you ate it once a week or whatever, that wouldn't be an issue at all. And then as for all those other things, the smoked salmon and however that salmon comes, that's fine. Generally, the smoked salmon has some nitrosamines in it that are supposed to be cancer causing. So I don't know if I would live on smoked salmon, but if you have it once in a while, it's probably not an issue. So does that answer all the questions?
Yes, one more thing. What is the best treatment for parasites like flukes and tapeworm?
Oh, okay. Well, each type of parasite has a best treatment. So ivermectin is good for worms, for example. It's really good for worms. But for flukes, they often get into the body, and it requires something else like mebendazole or fenbendazole or alinium. Right? Is that right? Yeah. Alinea. I think that's what it is. Anyway, so there's a specific treatment for the type you have. So you have to test for what you have, and then treat for the one that you get.
Okay, one last question, and it brings us back to sweeteners. Edward says, my home blood glucose levels range between 126 and 139. I rarely eat any sugar products other than date sugar and monk fruit. Should I stop using those? And is my glucose levels bad?
The answer to both questions is yes. Okay, so date sugar is sucrose, and the sucrose is half fructose and half glucose, and it does cause the release of insulin. A lot of insulin makes you insulin resistant. The monk fruit is actually a non-caloric sweetener. It's a sugar alcohol, but it still is a sweetener, and it still causes you to release insulin. And so get your glucose to between 70 and 90. That's where you want it to be. Don't not 110, 120 is still too high. Get it between 70 and 90. And that there's a good reason for that. And you will keep your brain better, you'll keep your kidneys better, your eyesight will work better. Everything will function better if you're at 70, 90 compared to 110 to 120. So that just those ranges, it makes a big difference. And if you look at a hemoglobin A1C, this study's been done of 5.4 versus 5.8. Just those 4 points of difference doubles your risk of death. Doubles. So it's not a small issue. Actually, getting it down to the 100 to the 70 to 90 range is a really good place to be.
All right, thank you. You have to go back to the
I
patients.
do.
We're lucky to have you as their doctor. Thank you for sharing your wisdom today, Dr. Saunders. It was a
You're
great.
welcome.
And for
Bye.
everyone watching, I hope you rethink about how sweets affects your body, whether it's from sugar, stevia, or allulose. Thanks for joining us. And remember, the less sweet you need, the better you are. The sweeter your health becomes. Maybe I should say that. That's a good
Yeah.
tagline.
All right. Well, I'll jump back in here if we can, spend a few more minutes. So at the beginning of the webinar, I kind of shared how Leslie has just decided to call it a career with the webinar and yeah, dealing with some different things, but she loves you all. And I thought it'd be just good for us. And you've probably seen in the chat a lot of comments coming in and notes of affection and love and appreciation for her. And so we're going to put that all into a card for her. And so we'll hang on here for a few more minutes if anybody may not have heard that. So we had quite a few people that jumped on after that. So, but yeah, and let's see ahead. I was going to share.
And I was going to answer Gary, when is the best time to take Cinnachroma, berberine, and turmeric? Breakfast or the evening meal? Yes. Cinnachroma should be probably started at the beginning of the day with breakfast, but if you need a second one, take it with your largest meal. And berberine can be taken at any time of the day. We do have a cheat sheet. If you email me at support@bartonpublishing.com, I can send you when we recommend to take all of the supplements, whether morning, noon, or night. That might be helpful for you. The one thing Dr. Saunders says about berberine, it's actually better to do 5 days on, 2 days off. So take it during the weekdays and then don't take it during the weekends. It helps your body reset and absorb the berberine. So, do you want to add anything to that, Joe?
Nope, that's all good. I was going to share my screen quick. So I was trying to find a good picture of Leslie. So this is her, Dr. Saunders, and I think this was like do you remember when that was in Austin, Texas, January of 2021, maybe? I remember because we all looked very white because we, live up in the well, Cheryl, you live in Florida, so you have a nice complexion all year round. But anyways, this is Leslie, as you all know, and yeah, if we're collecting any comments that you want to leave in the chat for us, a sign of appreciation for her, and yeah, we're gonna miss her a lot. She did an amazing job, but I'm also very confident that uh, you're in good hands. Cheryl, you do an amazing job as well. You did a great job today and have for the last, I mean, you've probably been doing this for like the last year. We did the Healthy
On
Heart
and off. Yeah.
webinar. Yeah, then we decided to combine it into one. So yeah, and then I think Jody is planning to join us as well, and you're all gonna love Jody. She is awesome, and yeah, just she's been with Barton for 5 years, I think, and you'll see her energy is contagious, and she's actually I don't know how she does it. She has two kids that are how old are Gigi and Howie? Like 7, 8, something like that. And they're they're balls of fire and energy. So, but yeah, and they're actually working. And actually, there's a prayer request. If you guys pray, like pray for Jody and her family. They're trying to finish the adoption of a girl named Evelyn from China. But several months ago, China just said like, nope, sorry, we're stopping all adoptions, and so that's been just a very hard process. But President Trump is meeting with President Xi like tonight. I think it's Thursday China time. So we're all praying for that just to be for something to break through and happen where just God's favor opens those adoptions back up so the adoptive families can finish that and get their kids into their families. So most of the kids are in orphanages and just don't have family, and it's really hard. And so, but I believe firmly that this is going to happen, and we're seeing. And Jody's just, yeah, Jody, I know you're watching, so we love you. We're praying for you. Like next 24 hours expecting big things, and so and then we'll figure out how to get you on as a co-host here as well. So um yeah, good stuff there. But anyways, we'll stay on for 2 more minutes. If anybody else hasn't shared any thoughts for Leslie that we'll share with her, type that in the chat right now, and we'll put that together, and that'll be great. Oh, also, so Leslie is still involved on the coaching side of the business, which we partner with committed coaches, and so that might be a way if you really do miss Leslie, you could get involved. Like, so we have a coaching program, and let me see, I can share something here quick. 1 second.
While he's doing that, a number of people are asking for the cheat sheet for taking supplements. Email me at support@bartonpublishing.com. I'll definitely get that to you right away. So Debbie, you asked, I think it was, or Deborah, sorry, again. Go ahead, Joe. Take it away.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what Rudy sent us.
Oh, yes,
The webinar. Seems so I tend to just throw things out there and then we figure it out afterwards. That's how it goes. Just ask my wife. Let's see. Anyways, I don't know if we have a link for it or not, but we do partner with a great team of health coaches that really like, and Dr. Saunders has talked about this, how important it is for most people just to have that support, accountability, and that community connection with a coach that can help answer questions personally, really like keep track and like check in regularly, and the progress of somebody that has a personal coach compared to someone that's trying to do it on their own is just night and day. And so I don't know if we're going to have a link for that or not, but like I mentioned, Leslie is part of that coaching community. And but yeah, we highly recommend it. And sometime in the next week or two, we'll share more about that and the link for that. We have shared in the past. We actually had Chad Tackett came on and talked about it. He's like the main coach that created that coaching program, and it's fantastic and just lots of great results. And so it's very synergistic with what Dr. Saunders teaches and the supplements that are used. And
put that in the chat.
okay.
It's all of it.
Nice. Yeah. So, okay, you want to read that?
Yeah, all right. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure you know about something that's honestly one of the most valuable parts of being a Barton Nutrition member. If you haven't done this yet, if you have, we'd love to hear your experience too. You actually get a free call with one of our expert coaches when we'll go over your unique situation. I'll ask you about your health, what you're taking, things like your current goals, supplements, nutrition habits, and challenges, and then help you come up with a complete game plan that fits you perfectly. It really is customized for you. They can identify what's working, what's not, and then give you clear next steps to help you move faster toward your goals. I can't stress this enough. This is included with your membership. It's one of the most valuable things you can do for yourself right now. Just click this link right here on the screen. Again, it's completely free for members and spots fill up fast. So go ahead and grab a time that works best for you, and your coach will take it from there. That sounded very formal, but
Excelente. All right. Well, I think I have captured all the texts, and I know Jody is screenshotting them as well. So we'll be sure to hand off all these to Leslie and make a fancy, pretty card and all that good stuff. But yeah, thanks for joining us today, everybody. And we're here to help you. And again, there is a 25% off coupon code that you can use for any supplements that you buy from us at bartonsupplements.com. And yeah, the coupon code is webinar25. So we've been using that for many years now, and I know it helps people financially, and it's a good to take advantage of that. And so anyways, yeah, I think that's it. So
yeah.
we've got, yeah, anything from you, Cheryl?
I was just gonna copy that link real quick and put it in the chat. There you go. That should
Oh
do it.
yeah, the coaching link. Yep. So
Yep.
click on that before we head off here and give that, yeah, sign up for a free call with the coach. All righty.
I love everybody. We never get to everybody's questions. It would be 3 hours if it was, if we got to everyone's questions. So come
Yeah.
back next time and maybe I'll get your question. And
And go visit the archive on YouTube, Barton Webinar. We have 300 plus webinars on there available. You can even search in the search tab, like the topic of interest. If you have a question about sucralose, type in Barton Webinar sucralose, and it should bring up like a video that Dr. Saunders has talked about that in the past. So yeah, very good stuff. So, and it's all for free.
yes.
Okay, off
All
to our
right.
next meeting. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.